You're listening to
Fresh Out the Game.
Man, I be so fresh.
Fresh Podcast Network.
בלי קשקושים.
Straight from Tel Aviv, Israel.
רק מה שמעניין.
Let's go.
Hi, my name is Hilal Leizarovich.
And I'm Rana Vaughn. We are two entrepreneurs from Israel, and we are on a journey to find out what makes entrepreneurs, investors, and CEOs
Succeed or fail.
and we hope to inspire your journey. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode on TLV DNA, and with us today
Nimrod. Nimrod Vax. I'm a co-founder and head of product for BigID.
BigID, and as usual,
Hilal Leizarovich.
so how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, and it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna ask you to give us, in a nutshell, in a brief, about BigID and what you do, and then we'll dive in
Okay.
to deep resolutions. Let's go.
All right. So BigID helps organizations better manage and protect the personal information they collect about their customers and their employees, so that they can better protect the data, protect the privacy of their customers, and also make use of the data from a business perspective. That's kind of in a nutshell what BigID does.
On this era, this is a great product and a good opportunity to talk about privacy and personality and around that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big issue today. So can you describe how well it assists and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So, you have to understand a little bit of what changed in the market that kind of transpired and made BigID a real need for the customers, right? So what happened was that over the past 10 years, organizations have been collecting endless amounts of information. Big data technologies allowed basically unlimited collection of data. And so everything was collected, all the data, all the clickstream information, everything about you, everything about what you do on your cell phone, coming from different parts of the business, from different channels. What ended up happening is that organizations really don't know what they are collecting about their customers. And they are not were not making very efficient use of the data. And what really changed things is that they realized that they cannot really protect the data. And so around when we started, around 2004, 2005, there were a lot of high-profile breaches of personal information. And what was interesting was that the information that was breached was not something that you would consider sensitive. It was just a list of customers, of employees, or first name, last name, addresses. But was very public. It was millions of records. So we were talking about for example, LinkedIn was breached, and Yahoo was a huge breach. And you had Ashley Madison, which was very, very kind of sensitive, obviously. And what was also interesting is that the organizations themselves, even though it was not what I would think originally business critical information, they were very embarrassed by those breaches and had to immediately be very publicly deal with them. And the cost of dealing with them was very high. In parallel, what happened was that legislation around privacy became very strong, partly because of that and partly because of historical reasons. And so regulations like GDPR started. They knew about it like 4 years before it came into effect. And all of these forces together kind of meant for the organizations that suddenly they had to find a way to better know their data. It was like the days before accounting. Right? And suddenly they had to account for the data that they have, and they didn't have any tools to do that. It was all manual processes that simply could not scale. And that's the gap that BigID really came to fill.
Okay, but let's take it from another point of view. You said names like LinkedIn, that bridge, and all the social media. So you can say that the users themselves, they gave the information, they decided what's public, and there's like a gray line between the privacy and the public figures. And those tools, they give us, a network and a big use for us.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you draw the line, and how do you know the user wanted and when it's private.
So first of all, the underlying assumption or the underlying state of privacy is that your private information belongs to you. It's yours, your data, and you decide what you want to do with it. And when you provide your data, you give it for a certain purpose. That purpose needs to be straightforward, and yes, it's a trade. You provide your personal information, and you get something in return, and that's fine, and that's part of the game. But there needs to be a commitment on the other side, receiving the data, to use the data for the purposes that it was given for, right? So if you give your data to Facebook to share it with your friends and to create a public persona, you don't give it in order to also necessarily determine what would be the rate of your mortgage or what would be the coverage you will get for health insurance, or what would be the premium that you will pay because you said something in social media, or you have a friend that does this, or your profile suggests that you are also a certain population. So it's really, there are a number of very basic principles around privacy. One is use the data for the purposes that it were intended. Be transparent about it. With your customers, protect the data so that it doesn't get used by other people. Like when you share the data with Cambridge Analytica, you can't turn a blind eye and say, "Oh, we told them in the paper that they cannot use it for other purposes." You have to have controls in place. You have responsibility for it, and give the control to the user. So the user can say, "Okay, stop. I don't want you to use the data anymore. Please delete my data, or please don't use it for other purposes." So those are kind of the principles that became actual law. It was no longer just, nice to have and kind of the moral thing to do. It just became a law that organizations have to comply with if they want to do business in Europe, which means basically do business at all. And now with the regulations in the U.S., also across the U.S. I mean, the California Consumer Privacy Act is now having a second version of it was approved, so a more strict one that's very similar to GDPR. There are multiple other states already in the U.S. that have legislations, and there will be, especially under Biden's government, there will be a federal law across the U.S. So this is the direction the whole world is moving at.
All right, so I wanted to simplify it and understand it better. I'm going into a platform, I agree. For terms and condition, I sign up, I'm in. They get my personal private content, right? About myself, my name, other details as well, and that's okay, right? I agreed.
And they also do a deduction from all your information.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should share. They will have a privacy policy that you will sign up for, and that privacy policy will explain what they are doing with your information. Today, also, privacy policies should be easy to read, and organizations are trying to keep it simple to read. One of our first customers, I can talk about this, is Nike. You look at their privacy policy; it's very, very simple to read, and so that is the contract basically, and you know how your data is being used. The thing is that organizations, even after you sign the privacy policy, the information goes to 1 million different locations. And it's collected by 1 million different brands and sub-brands.
In their organizations?
Inside their organization.
Or external?
Internally.
Internally.
Even, right? So you have multiple brand managers that are collecting information, and suddenly the developers change the website a little bit and are collecting something else now. And you have all kinds of third-party components on your website that are sharing information with all kinds of analytics and other tools. So the information is in a lot of places. And especially when it comes into the data lakes and the data warehouses, you get millions of columns and tables that are coming from various different places, have been transformed already, and nobody really understands. Even if the developer that collected this information will not recognize that information inside the data warehouse. And so the organizations need a way to better understand, track, catalog all the data, understand what type of information is found there, whose information it is. If someone wants to be deleted, go in and be able to delete that information. And this is the service that we provide for those organizations, basically.
As you know, our listeners are entrepreneurs, and some of the buzzwords in the startup nation and around the world in startups, it's AI and machine learning and
Yep.
everything. So, in early stage, when they are developing this AI and all the machine, what would you suggest them to address from private point of view?
So they need to. You're asking what they need to do from a privacy perspective to take care of the data, or how they need to position it to investors so that they'll get funded, because it's two different things.
It is two different things. You can address them both, by the way.
Yeah.
I would say one of the lessons learned by us is that do the right thing for the product, and not necessarily the right thing for machine learning, right? In the sense that don't do machine learning for machine learning, solve the business problem that you have, and use machine learning tools as much as you can. And then when you talk about it, obviously you want to explain to the investors that you are building barriers of entry. You have technological barriers of entry. What is machine learning? It means that you have a special sauce that the other startups cannot copy. That's what's important for the investors, that you have those barriers of entry so that others cannot copy you easily. But don't try to solve something with machine learning just because it's cool or it sounds interesting for the investors. From a privacy perspective, obviously, and that applies to all types of regulations, also security. And if you're in finance, it would, if you're in fintech, it would apply also, is to start from the start, be compliant and be aware of the regulations that you have, because retrofitting afterwards would be very disruptive, very difficult to do. And so this is another thing that you need to be ahead of the demand in terms of regulation, security, and these aspects. Especially if you are a security company, you need to be very secure. If you are a fintech company, you need to be very careful about all of the transactions and the financial actions inside your application. And yes, it's always a balance because you want to run very, very fast.
So you are like the superhero protector of people's privacy. But at the end of the day, you conduct your business with businesses in a B2B model.
Correct.
When did you and how did you identify your business model and even created it?
I think for BigID, it was very straightforward because we knew very early on that we are going to sell to businesses because that's where the big problem is. And we both of us as founders came from the enterprise security market or enterprise software market. And so that's what we knew how to do, to sell to enterprises. And also the problem, that's where the money is, right? The money is coming from... so our model was very simple. We sell to the large organizations. We try to understand within the organization who is the right buyer. And that's where it becomes a little bit more kind of difficult because the problem started with privacy. And we went to privacy, and our first advisors told us, look, there are a lot of security software out there. There are very little vendors that deal with privacy, and everything is done with privacy manually. So that's why we decided to go for privacy initially. But we found out very quickly that the privacy organizations, they don't have any budgets. They are basically lawyers. They are not technical. You show them a nice screen, they get scared. All they want to see is a spreadsheet. They see a spreadsheet or a Word document. That's the maximum that they want to see. So the opposite of user experience and everything like that.
So you needed to redefine your clients.
We needed to understand the dynamics within the customer because they were buying a certain type of solutions that were basically legal type of process management, things that help them with their forms and their surveys and take it a step further. And which in our space, it's called more GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. Those are type of more organizational workflow type of products. We wanted, and we had kind of our DNA was more around the data itself. And we found the opportunity and ability to differentiate more in the technological aspect of the data analysis and data discovery. And it was a part of the problem. It was a big problem. But what we saw is that even though the privacy office was the one that said, we have a problem we have to solve, they would say something like, thou shall have data, know your data, right? You should have data mapping. Okay, so data mapping for the lawyers meant going to all of the people in the organization, ask them, what data do you have, whose data it is, basically based on surveys and interviews, right? Imagine doing that in a bank like Citigroup or JP Morgan, right? Go chase 200,000 employees and ask them to give you that information. What kind of accuracy are you going to get? And so a lot of organizations, some organizations took that approach because they just needed to do something. The more thorough organizations, basically that turned into a task to the chief data officer and the chief security officer. And so eventually we found that the budget is coming from the chief data office or the security office, and they had deeper pockets. And they needed to solve that problem because the general counsel told them that you have to do it. And so that's where we found our buyers basically within the organization. And now we are also going back and selling more, wanting to sell more to the privacy officer as well. So we haven't given up, and we have still solutions. Still, the chief privacy officer is a very significant influencer in the sale and initiator. So we had a little bit of a kind of, we had to understand that dynamic better within the organization. Initially, we started, we are Israeli company, so we went for the CISOs. Mm-hmm. But we found out that it's mostly the chief data officers. And that the chief data officers were responsible for all the data in the organization, not only from a risk perspective, but also from a value perspective. And over the year, we understood that they need that data discovery not only for privacy, they need it also for data management, data governance, and the CISO needs it for security. So that led us to gradually move into a more of a platform play or a platform approach where we provide the platform and the applications on top of the platform to serve specific needs in privacy and security and in data management and in the future in marketing and other lines of business that need data intelligence.
Tell us about BigID first breakthrough for proof of technology first customer.
Sure. It was we started very early talking to customers, right? We all of our conversations and the ideation process was done before we had we even got funded. We worked very closely, and actually some of those customers that early customers we got from the first not even investors, but the first VCs that we spoke to. That some of them have not invested, and the value they gave us is those conversations with other customers. So even before we knew exactly what we are going to build, we had a lot of conversations with a lot of customers and large customers, and we understood what we are going to build, and basically we started building a demo. Right, one system. We didn't say it's a demo, but it was a demo. Basically, it was one system that we can scan and show the value. We started with Hadoop because it was cool, and nobody else had anything for Hadoop at the time for discovery. And we showed some of the concepts, and we started showing that to different customers. And then they started getting involved and wanted a pilot, not necessarily a paid pilot, but just install it, see that it works.
Like a design partner.
Like a design partner, yeah, out of curiosity and out of interest. And so that got us that interest got us funded eventually. And then we basically over the first 9 months or so, we were building that type of a prototype, working closely with those customers. And we already started to basically market it as a solution. And we started getting incoming requests for demos and for POCs and things like that. And because we had good timing, and everyone was talking about privacy, and we marketed around GDPR and the right to be forgotten and data discovery and data mapping. Those were terms that people were looking for, and we got a lot of incoming interest. And so over that first year, I would do 2-3 demos a day, and incoming. They would come in from the web, and that's how one day a very large semiconductor company approached us, right? And later on became a customer. And so that was kind of the way we started. And some of those became POCs, some of those did not. And eventually, we had 3 customers that were in the process that were ready to basically go with us. And that was rather late. So it was probably a year and a half in after we got funded. It was very close to our second round, and we actually had to kind of get a little bit of a bridge from our existing investors. We tried to also do a second round A at the time, and said, look, we have these amazing customers, they're ready to sign, and everybody told us, okay, tell us when they sign and then we'll come in.
Yeah, as usual.
Yes. And so and then we've closed one relatively small Israeli company, relatively small meaning in US terms. And that kind of helped one big US company to feel more comfortable doing it. Essentially, at this phase, you're basically telling the customers, look, we'll be an extension of your development team. Look at us as developers working for you and building a solution for you. So instead of building it on your own, build it with us. And they signed. And then we signed a paid pilot with another customer, and that paid pilot also turned into a deal. And when that happened, kind of immediately, all of those investors that we spoke to immediately wanted to invest. We had a kind of a preemptive round, so to speak, because we had a lot of interest. And we selected, we had the opportunity to select who we want to
get investment from.
To get investment from. And shortly after that, we also we won the Innovation Sandbox Award at the RSA conference, and we were a cool vendor by Gartner.
So they created a buzz as well.
And that even created a more significant buzz. And then I think it was 6 months or something like that, or maybe even 9 months later, that we just closed another deal another round because it was good terms, right?
I want to simplify it again. You actually created a proof of value, and then you created a story around it. You started to market, POC, pilot, first customer.
Yeah, basically we started marketing it immediately, and we didn't even bother telling anyone that it's like a beta.
It's not ready.
It was obvious. Yes, well, we were honest with the customers, but we told them what we have, and we showed them the software, and it created a lot of interest because the demo was very compelling. And in parallel, we added more and more systems and more use cases. So there was a lot of interest from it. There was also a lot of interest from partners or the Big Four, right? The consulting companies that had to deal with those same projects, the privacy projects. So a lot of interest from EY, from PwC, from Deloitte, Accenture, that helped generate that buzz also with customers. So customers heard also from the system integrators that they know about BigID. And so it was a lot easier for them to kind of trust a small startup.
Today, BigID considered as a unicorn. So you have a large investment, you will tell us in a minute. But what I would like to ask is about the growth moment. So tell us about the investment and the growth that came afterwards.
So we were very, very conservative in terms of investment. The first investment we got, our first round was 2.1 million, right? That was our seed round. It hardly was enough for a year for us. And we, for the first year, we were in a room in Mindspace, five engineers and me, and my partner in the US in his backyard, basically.
And today, so we'll have the perspective. You are how many?
Today we are 250 people, about 100 in Israel, still in Mindspace. By the way. So we were very conservative in the first year, even 2 years, very conservative in terms of spending money. And I would say we still are relative to kind of hyper growth companies. But at some point, especially when we started getting significant revenues, we had to grow significantly, and we also got very significant round funding. So over the past, I think, year and a half, we raised 170 million, I think.
170 million on a round A?
On B, C, and D, or C, D, and E,
All right.
depending on how you
Stop hunting.
How you
count
look at it, yeah.
Yeah. And so at that point, we started kind of what you would call hypergrowth. And basically what that means is that the constraints that you have are not constraints around what you can build, is how fast you can hire people to build what you need to build. And how fast you can hire in order to have enough sales reps that are trained that can sell to grow the multiples that you need to grow. And you can grow because there is demand. And you're just leaving those deals on the table because there is no, I wouldn't say no one to pick up the phone. It's not that dramatic, but it's literally there are not enough reps that could go out and sell your software. So that is a very challenging moment where you need to really be able to change the operation and hire a lot of people. And that has a ripple effect over how you need to hire experts and managers that know how to manage this operation, that have the experience. Your existing team now needs to be more focused. So if I did 10 things in the past, now I need to do 1 or 2 things. I think I cannot and I should not do other things that I'm not an expert in, right? I used to do pre-sales. I'm not doing pre-sales anymore. I used to do demos. I'm not doing demos.
How it made you feel when it happened, that you need to let go?
So there are things that you're happy to let go.
Of course.
But there are things that you need. It's hard to let go because you don't want mistakes to be made, right? So you need to, you need to make sure that people are not making mistakes. And that is a constant process, right? It's not something that I would say is behind us, right? We are hiring right now a VP products, right? So we are in that process right now. But it's and it is a process where you need to trust the people, and it's also about hiring the right people that fit your style, and also about training them and guiding them so that they will be able to independently make those decisions without coming back to you, because otherwise it will not scale. If you need to be involved in those decision points, and then there is a limit to how big the organization can grow.
I want to take you back to the value proposition and your differentiator, because I believe it's the heart of the business at the end of the day. So a lot of people will go and think about your market, and they say, wow, there's a lot of security companies, and they usually go and think about the servers and the security apps on the servers and hardware security on the servers. And they said that this is not enough. Where did you find that differentiator that really gained you an edge in that market? And I'll give an example. We had an insurance company here in Israel, Bridge, not too long ago, and credit cards are all over the place, and private details are all around. Most people would think it's on the server. It's, you know, the apps, the hardware. It's over there. It's already secured. That's another level that you developed.
Yeah, I mean, so I can go into the details of how we differentiate, right? In general, first of all, our decision initially to focus on privacy was a way to differentiate even towards the buyers, right? To select the buyers that need those solutions. But going into the chief data officer and especially the security officer, there are existing tools, right? For us, without getting too kind of technical about our specific domain, there were a number of things that were unique. We took an approach. One of the problems in the market were that there were a lot of solutions, niche solutions for different purposes. So security solutions were very focused on unstructured data and solving PCI and HIPAA and certain regulations. Or there were solutions for databases, solutions for cloud like CASB. And there were no solutions that went across all of the data sources. So that's one differentiator that we took. And it's a heavy lift.
And holistic.
Yeah, end-to-end.
End-to-end, A to Z, end-to-end.
Yeah, all data sources. All data sources, that's one thing. The other thing is what we call discovery in depth. So we focus on discovery. Typically, the solutions, especially in security and other locations or types of solutions, were not focused on data discovery. They used discovery to solve another problem. If you look at security tools, they have some data discovery capabilities in order for them to have more effective policies, to know where to protect the data. We basically consolidated all of the discovery capabilities into one platform, and we said, you can't have just this type of discovery and that type of discovery. You need to have all of them layered because one type is good for this use case, one type is good for the other use case. So we have a very, very deep consolidated list of discovery methods, regular expressions and machine learning and NLP and cluster analysis, and these are all layered on top of each other. So very, very kind of deep discovery capabilities. That's the other thing. And the third thing is our ability to know who the identity is. And that's in the name of the product, right? BigID. It's looking at the data and not only telling you what type of data it is, but also telling you whose data it is. And knowing whose data it is very unique. Nobody really does that. And you could say, okay, if nobody does that, why do you need it? But it's very hard to do. And you need it. You need it for privacy use cases, because if someone wants to be deleted, you need to find that person's data and delete it. You need it for security reasons, because if you have a breach, you need to notify the people that were impacted by that breach. It's not just a breach, and it helps you limit the size of the breach, because you're not notifying everyone. You just notify the people that were impacted. And it's very important also from a data management perspective, because it helps you get a business perspective about the data. Now this data set belongs to this entity type, right, or business entity. Because as a business, when you're doing BI, you have different business entities that you are tracking, that you're interested in. You have partners, you have customers, you have products, you have cars, you have vehicle ID numbers, you have devices, and each one of those is an identity. So BigID gives you a perspective of the data, cross-referencing those identities or entities. So that's also important from a data management perspective, and gives deeper insight about the data. So those are kind of the main three differentiators. What we've added recently is also that we are basically an open platform. And now it's not only about the capabilities of discovery. Now you can run any application on top of BigID. We have our own native applications that solve specific problems in privacy, in security, etc. Like an application, search for a name, and you'll find all the data of that person and generate all the reports needed, right? But we can also connect to your existing applications. And if
so you wanted to make it more accessible,
more extensible. And use it not only to run the native BigID kind of suite, but also if you have a best-of-breed solution and you need to enhance it you want to enhance it with data insight, we do that, right? We can integrate, we can make it smarter. Even our competitive solutions, right? We can integrate with them and enhance them, enrich them with more data intelligence. And you can build also integrations and solutions on top of that. So that approach of the platform changed a lot of things in the way we think, and also changed the way, obviously, the customers think of it, because it reduces a lot of the barriers for customers to rip and replace other solutions. They don't have to. They don't have to choose. They can use us with some of their existing tools as well.
I think it's even a disruptional point of view where you say, I come in the hat of security and privacy, but I enhance biz dev and business development in the organization itself.
Right, and that's a very good point, right? So, and we, even though in the beginning we started a lot with privacy, and the privacy agenda was the one that kind of created and opened up the budgets, we are being used as a part of the data management and security solutions. And now we can move laterally within the organizations and offer more applications to different parts of the business. Yeah, and what you say is correct, is that we see a lot of value now, not only for compliance and data governance and management, but also for marketing, and enhancing, enriching the business intelligence tools, the data warehouses, with identity-centric information and data, right? And that can help them get more value out of the data, not only comply with regulations.
You say business intelligence, I'll say business insights.
Yeah.
Give the organization some business insights from a different angle.
Exactly.
Cool.
So let's go back to BigID journey. Tell us about a challenge that you experienced, that you felt that take you to the next step.
An aha moment.
Yeah, exactly. This is like the expression.
I think that, so one of the things I think that we have made a very conscious decision very early on between cloud and on-premise. And I told you that we were very pragmatic and very conservative around spending.
Yeah.
Very early on. We weren't funded like tens of millions of dollars to be able to run a very expensive SaaS environment and build that bottom-up motion for a very long time until you really get kind of that pickup in sales or the hockey stick kind of approach, because it takes a long time. We came from the enterprise space, and we saw immediate opportunities within the enterprise space that we could capitalize on and grow with. And that formed the type of solution that we built very early on. So even though we wanted to build a cloud service, our customers, our big customers that we went to, and we went to some of the biggest retailers in the US, some of the biggest financial services, manufacturing, they did not want to move their data to the cloud, especially not the personal information. Most of their data was in their even if it was in AWS or in Azure, it was still in their private cloud. And they wanted something running internally that they would manage. And that had a good fit to what we were able to, because it's a lot more cost efficient to sell software rather than to sell service. And so this is how we started. And that got us very large deals, very large accounts very early on. And when we look at the growth and where we want to, how we want to grow in the future, we realized that in order to get very fast growth, eventually we will need to be able to sell it as a SaaS service. And that is a very important kind of transition and changes kind of a lot of things in the product and in the go-to-market. And so this is kind of, and so our model that we look at companies like Snowflake, or companies like Databricks. I don't know if you noticed, but Snowflake had an IPO a couple of months ago at a valuation of $25 billion.
Wow.
It's a company that is about 8 years old. Databricks just raised $1 billion with a valuation of $28 billion. Just pre-IPO.
Yeah, like also,
yeah, and
nice numbers.
Right. And what's the reason why we're looking at those companies? Obviously, we want to have the same valuation, but it's not so much about the valuation. Both of those solutions, and also you look at MongoDB. MongoDB came out with Atlas about 5 years ago. MongoDB was a classic on-premise solution. What's common about all of those companies is that they are selling a very complex offering, very complex data warehouse offering. It's like, I don't know if you're familiar with Teradata or these type of very heavy multi instance kind of clusters of heavy databases. And they were able to abstract the complexity completely from the user by providing a service that is priced based on utility pricing and become completely self-service by the analyst or by the business unit that wants to. So today you can stand up a cluster of a Snowflake. My mother can do it. It's so simple, right? That obviously gave them that ability to grow very rapidly. And so that is kind of the aha moment for us, is that we knew that we will need to do it, but now we have really the funding and ability to really invest.
And change yourself. I mean, from architecture to sales.
I wouldn't say change ourselves completely, but start growing another arm, right? Another organ for a bottom-up cloud scale kind of a company.
When was that aha moment?
I have a very short memory, so it's probably in the past couple of months.
Gotcha.
And how do you prepare
We always knew
yourself?
that we were going to do it, but and we started gradually, and even about a year ago, we have a cloud service, but we talk to a lot. We talk a lot with a lot of those peers in those, and also the investors. They help us kind of talk to those companies, because some of our investors are also investors in Snowflake and in those companies. And we hear their experience as well. And many of them say, one of the lessons, and I heard this from the MongoDB side, for example, we asked them when they made the decision, or looking back, did they make it at the right time? And he said that they made that decision about a year before they went public, and they wished they had made that decision a year before that, right? So that's
Gotcha.
So it's about flexibility and know when to change and how to prepare yourself. And every entrepreneur have those changes around his journey many times. So in the first one it's more difficult, and now you're more prepared. So give us an advice how to be prepared to those kind of.
I think that one of the important things is to have a lot of conversations, a lot of be connected, and have a lot of conversations with a lot of industry peers and people around you, other entrepreneurs, other companies. Don't be defensive about it. Everybody's going through the same dilemmas, the same questions. You'll hear different things from different people. So as much as you can, engage with other peers. Look for those conversations, for those intros with people with other companies, and how they think about these things.
Build your own network around you.
Build your own network. Use your investors, use your friends, use your LinkedIn, whatever it is, to always have that conversation. It's very easy to fall into the day-to-day and to just focus on solving your problems. You have to be able to have that open conversations. It's very important to learn.
So when you
from
say
others.
defensive, I guess you mean more as don't be protective about your idea and share it and
don't be married to your idea and or your methods. We change our architecture so many times over the time. We made horrible mistakes from various aspects, ranging from engineering, marketing, you name it. But it's better to do than not to do, and you always need to to keep an open mind and not worry about the mistakes you did. But it sounds like a kind of a platitude, right? But it is true, right? Our success is also the mistakes that we've made, because probably we did something else because of that that made us successful. So It's all kind of the past is in the past, and again, the point is that you need to have that network and that communication. You know, one of the things that really helped us very early on was all of those accelerators that we have here in Israel. We signed up for like, I don't know, 5 different accelerators at the same time, and
you went with
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Microsoft,
Multiple
Citi,
acceleration.
Yeah, we went with everyone. Plug and play, you name it. We were in a lot of accelerators. They all want exclusivity, and they all allow you to do whatever you want. You get a lot of out of it. You get a lot of interaction with other other entrepreneurs. You get also exposure to customers. You get exposure to investors. Highly recommended, and it keeps you open to other people's other challenges and solutions.
It's like a steady brainstorming all the time.
Yeah.
Gotcha. This is a journey of 16 years approximately, right? When did you start?
BigID, 5 years.
5 years? Oh, so
Yeah.
it's 2014.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I heard 2004 before. All right.
Okay. Maybe maybe I was wrong.
All right. So that's a short journey.
Yeah.
Okay. But in matters of investments, you went through all the rounds of investments.
Yeah, we went through 4 or 5 rounds of investments. The last 3 were very significant ones, like over $50 million and very high valuations. It's a matter of I think you have the stars are aligned, right? We had a lot of luck, and we had a lot of other things that were in our favor. So yeah, it's a short period of time, but it feels like a long time.
All right. We'll try to sum it up. We always try to sum up the meeting with 3 great tips that you can, take out of your pocket and give it to other entrepreneurs all over the world that are listening right now. It could be anything, really, but these are your main 3 tips.
Yeah.
Wow, you should have asked me before to think about it.
You can think out loud.
Yeah.
You can think out loud.
Look, if I'm looking at it like from when we started, I think the fact that we went, get funded early on, and because you need that funding, don't start small, if you can. Don't get like 100K and then another 100K and bootstrap and things
Think
like that.
big.
Yeah, try to get funded properly. If you can't get funded properly, probably there is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout our funding process, don't think about how much am I going to be left with, and do I need to get funded or not. You get funded when you can, not when you need it, right? Because at the end of the day, you will need that funding, and if you'll be successful, it doesn't matter if you have this percentage or the other percentage. So that's my tip overall regarding funding. Go to market as early as possible. Go out with your product. Don't wait. Just because you get the feedback, you change the product, you change the marketing, you understand better how to position it.
It's part of the make mistakes agenda.
Yeah, you have to be out there immediately, and it takes a long time to build a brand. It takes a very long time. So start from day one. The earliest, even sometimes, start before you have a product, right? Sign up for the beta. People love that, right? All they want to do is like you are, 20,000 people in front of you waiting to get the product. Yeah, do it as early as possible. So that was the other thing that we always did. Just go fast. Go first in, just do first and then ask questions, right? That is very important. Get exposed. At some point, you'll need to be more mature in your product, but that's a good problem to have.
But
right?
basically share.
Yeah.
Share and try.
Yeah, absolutely. As fast as you can. And then, the last tip I have is about, always communicate and be talking to everyone all the time. It's very important to exchange that information with a lot of people. There are a lot of other important tips I'm sure that I forgot, but I think those are kind of things that really helped us in our journey.
Great. Anything else, Ila?
No, but this was very interesting.
Thank you.
I think that the tips you gave are extremely valuable. Sorry. And good luck for it.
Thank you.
All right, so that was another episode here on TLV DNA. Thank you very much, guys. And I'm sure our audience all around the world can have the tips, use it, and like Ila said, very valuable. You can listen to all our podcasts and this episode on all major platforms from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and even watch it on YouTube. Thank you very much, guys. See you on the next episode.